hybrid approach, as we call it, with practicals online and
Yeah.
theoretical classes. Sorry, practicals on site
Inside, yeah.
with the student. But now the situation is not so.
Yeah. And what about grad students? Are they coming in the labs or?
Yeah, they do.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So for research purposes, for clinical work, they can come.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Okay, so I'll be back in 5 minutes. Okay, and just go to refresh a little bit because I had lectures all this
Okay,
morning.
that's fine. That's fine. Yep.
Okay.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, so
So
I
now,
should start.
so let me little bit. I will briefly introduce you, Dr.
Okay.
Henry. So, so first of all, thank you very much, Dr. Henry, for accepting our invitation and speaking on the topic related to ticks from biology to diseases of One Health approach. We are really thankful to you. And before you start, I would like to briefly introduce. However, short bio has been posted on the poster of this webinar. So briefly, Dr. Andre has been graduated from Faculty of Veterinary Medicine in Cluj-Napoca, Romania in 2002, and in 2007 he obtained his PhD degree in parasitic diseases at the same institution. Currently, he is associated with Department of Parasitology and Parasitic Diseases at University of Agricultural Sciences and Veterinary Medicine of Cluj-Napoca, Romania. So he coordinated various research projects on vector-borne diseases, including pan-European neck VEC coast action, and he is actively involved in research and social veterinary medicine projects focused on parasitic and infectious diseases of small animals, dogs and cats, across sub-Saharan Africa, with previous work done in Kenya, Uganda, Ivory Coast, Central African Republic, and so on. Professor Andrei is associate editor of several peer-reviewed journal, Parasitic and Vectors, International Journal for Parasitology, IGP-PA, Veterinary Parasitology, Regional Studies and Report, BMC Veterinary Research, really high-end journals in parasitology. He is author of more than 150 papers in peer-reviewed journals and many international books and chapters. So in his free time, he enjoys doing wildlife photography and has several featured articles in National Geographic. So I welcome you on behalf of our faculty and organizers. Thank you very much, Dr. Andrei, for joining us today. And over to you.
Hello, Rajneesh. Hello, everybody. I hope you can hear me well and see me. So I'm very happy to have accepted this invitation, which came a long time ago, and things changed during the time. We changed the dates, I think, but finally we are here, and this is the most important thing. So for the next hour, I would be delighted to speak about one of my favorite topics, which are the ticks. And as myself, I'm a veterinarian. I am trying to approach this topic mainly from a veterinary point of view, but on the other hand, considering the current context of One Health, and I'm sure that most of you are aware about the meaning of this concept of One Health, to discuss a little bit about ticks from this perspective, from the One Health perspective, because when we discuss about ticks, it's not only about their biology or the diseases they cause, but finally, it's about as we see them as humans, as ticks influence us. How do they do it? Yeah, the problem is quite complex, and I will try to explain you from a different perspective than what you know. So a little bit about ticks. Currently, ticks are a relatively diverse group of parasitic organisms being part of the arthropods together with spiders and related organisms like scorpions, tarantulas, and so on, making up the class Arachnida among the arthropods. And ticks are currently around 900 species distributed all over the world, with definitely a much more diversity in the tropical and subtropical areas, and India, of course, as well. So the ticks are divided into three families nowadays. The most well studied, probably, which includes the hard ticks with a little bit more than 700 species, uh, soft ticks, which are less than 200 species, and one single family, which is called Nutalielidae, which includes only one species found in South Africa, Nutaliella nammaca. But it's not so important now to discuss about the biology on the taxonomy of on the diversity of ticks as such, but rather to discuss a little bit about their influence on animals, on humans, and in general for the humankind. First of all, the most important role of ticks in the world, it's their role as vectors, because it doesn't matter if it's India or Romania, where I'm coming from, or if it's any other different world. The ticks in most of the places where they occur, they are very well known as vectors for several diseases produced by viruses, bacteria, protozoans, or even nematodes. Yeah, viruses such as, for instance, the tick-borne encephalitis virus, or the Omsk hemorrhagic fever virus, or the Crimean Congo hemorrhagic fever virus, bacteria such as Rickettsia, some species of Borrelia, of course, are transmitted by ticks, Anaplasma, and many others. Protozoans is the very well-known example of the pyroplasms, like for instance Babesia, Theileria, or related organisms, and even nematodes, as I mentioned, such as Cercopithecillaria in several parts of the world. So this is their most important role. But the ticks, definitely they have also a direct effect on the host, producing in most of the cases a mild local reaction or even severe reactions. But in high numbers, when the intensity of the infection is very high, they produce anemia. Some species are able, for instance, to induce tick paralysis or toxicosis of different other natures. Uh, Overall, because of their vectorial role and because of the direct effect they have, certainly the ticks have a huge economic impact. And I will discuss mainly about this economic impact because for the One Health approach, this is the most important aspect. Their economic impact resides mainly in the mortality, sometimes even mass mortality they are able to cause, mainly because of the transmission of certain diseases, but also because of being responsible for low productions, decreased fertility in animals, and finally, last but not least, with all the costs related to their tick control, including here prevention, treatment, and even surveillance and diagnostics of tick-borne diseases. Among the most important tick-borne diseases, which are present mainly in livestock, because my main focus today will be on livestock, because the economic impact it's more easily measured when we discuss about livestock, are listed in this very simple, let's say, overview of diseases, because there are hundreds of pathogens transmitted by ticks. Of course, not all of them are so relevant. So among the most important diseases transmitted by ticks in livestock, we include, for instance, the bovine babesiosis and bovine theileriosis produced by different species of Babesia also and Theileria. Also, some are parasitic in small ruminants. Plus, of course, you have the bovine and ovine anaplasmosis, which are present in various combinations and produced by various species worldwide, and many others like, for instance, cowdriosis or other diseases transmitted by various species of ticks, mainly of genus Amblyoma, Dermacentor, Hemaphysalis, Hyaloma, and Rhipicephalus. So I will start with one example. It's a paper published already almost 15 years ago, but it's still very actual. Things don't change too much with this aspect. Ticks have a huge economic impact. And in Tanzania, where the study was done, they did the meta-analysis of cattle mortality over a period of almost yes 81 to 12 years, yeah, and they concluded, the authors, that tick-borne disease is accounted for 71.4% of the adult cattle mortality in Tanzania, which is a tropical country from Africa. And the situations is related to 4 diseases: theileriosis, with almost half of the mortality is caused by theileria, 16% caused by anaplasma, 6.3 caused by cowdria, and 5, a little bit more than 5% by babesia. And the same percentage of mortality of 75% was found also in calf mortality. And you see here the head counts and different other products, not only the heads, but also the live weight losses and milk losses in tons due to certain diseases. It's amazing, yeah, for a whole country to calculate this in different systems, in agropastoral or pastoral systems, then again calculated in money, in million US dollars. And here finally we have the grand total. Overall, tick-borne diseases in Tanzania over this period of 12 years, they produced a loss of $364 million. It's a huge amount for a country which relies mainly on livestock production, where people rely on livestock in general, and livestock losses are often associated with famine in humans, poor social status, and also increased infant mortality, which is quite sad. So finally, ticks, even if they are so small parasites, they are able to cause huge economic losses and social impacts, mainly in tropical countries, where also the economic power of these countries is not so strong. And these things happen all over Africa, in many countries, in Asia, for instance, but also in South America. So this is the biggest problem when discussing about tick-borne diseases: how to evaluate the losses, how to evaluate the impact, how to evaluate the so-called One Health. Because when we discuss about ticks of livestock, for instance, it's not only about livestock. Finally, it's also about the local economy. It's about the local biodiversity. It's about the environmental impact related to overgrazing and many other things. It's related to the health status of people. And this is One Health. One Health, it's about health of animals, health of humans, health of the environment. And the impact is so great on all of them in the case of ticks that it's very difficult to evaluate. So together with a quite big team of specialists from Europe, we participated in a project. You see here up the logo. It was called the Network for the Evaluation of One Health, where some rules for evaluating properly the One Health concept were stated in the declaration, which was done exactly in my home city, because the meeting was organized by me here for all the specialists, and we published together this paper, which I invite you to read if you are interested in the concept of One Health. And to highlight even more the impact of the livestock health on humans, it's this paper published in 2009. Again, that's no need to redo it. Its conclusions are quite clear that the livestock diseases have a very significant impact on the human society in general, because of various factors. They are responsible for poverty. They are responsible for success of the others. They are responsible for deforestation, because if the livestock product is not enough because of the diseases, people will tend to keep more. Keeping more livestock with low productivity, of course, will impact the biodiversity, because they will extend their grazing areas to natural environments. They will deforest. They will contribute, of course, by different mechanisms which I'll not discuss here, even to the global warming and so on. So the impact is quite global, and it's no need to discuss it anymore. So when we present which are the problems, the main problems related to the evaluation of the economic impact of ticks in livestock, the situation is extremely complex. And in the following slides, I will try to increase a little bit the complexity of the questions which we have to ask when evaluating the economic impact of ticks and tick-borne diseases. First of all, it's about the direct mortality caused by the ticks and tick-borne diseases. And to really be able to do so, as you have... Hello? Yes? Can I ask if you're online to mute your microphones, please? Because otherwise we hear all the sounds around, and it's not very pleasant for the participants mainly. Yeah, okay, thank you very much. So have you have seen that study from Tanzania? It's one example. There are several similar studies. But are we sure that that study was quite okay? Was it really the correct number to say that 74% of the animals which died of tick-borne diseases? Did anybody really check all those animals and they performed professional veterinary diagnostics? So to really assess the real mortality, we need confirmation of the diagnosis. And we also need very clear and homogeneous case definitions. Without those, we cannot say that, okay, 74% of the animals died of tick-borne diseases. And moreover, mainly in the countries which are highly affected by these diseases, the reporting systems are not very well in place. So if some animals die in a remote area of Kenya or in countries which are at war or different social conflicts, we are not going to be aware of exactly how many animals died. We do not even know how many animals these countries have. Yeah, everything is based only on estimates. So this is something which we should address in general. Then there is a lot of indirect mortality, which is the result of tick infestation or of tick-borne diseases. And it's very difficult to correlate in this case, if it's indirect, of course, the cause and the effect. For instance, it has been demonstrated that the presence of ticks on livestock is responsible for a higher incidence of dermatophilosis, which is a bacterial disease produced by Dermatophilus congolensis. It's a skin infection. And also the cows mainly, but also small ruminants which are heavily infected with ticks are more susceptible to myiasis. But there is no clear study to demonstrate the cause effect for this. But even these diseases, for instance, dermatophilosis or myiasis, are responsible themselves for further economic impact. And the other interactions between ticks, tick-borne diseases, and livestock are even more complex. Like, for instance, ticks decrease the immunity of animals by injecting immunosuppressant saliva components. They produce anemia and so on. And again, they result in indirect mortality. The most important, at least, because in most of the cases, to be honest, I'm not talking only about tropical areas, but even temperate areas. Ticks in temperate areas, in my region, for instance, they are very rarely responsible for mortalities. However, they might decrease the productions, but we don't know how much. Because let's say, if a cow normally in my country produces around 30%, 30 liters of milk per day, and if they have ticks, maybe they produce 29.8 liters per day, the loss is so small that finally the owners will not realize directly that they have a 200 milliliters per day or 50 milliliters per day loss in every cow. And this is not only about ticks, it's about all the parasites. So the impact on an individual cow, it's so small that the owners and the farmers tend to neglect it. But if somebody has a flock of 200 cows, and if they have 100 milliliters of milk loss per day in every cow, then we already discussed about 20 liters per day. And if you count that the cows are producing milk for around 300 days per year, yeah, then the loss related to this becomes roughly 6 tons per year. And 6 tons, it's a lot of money already. But this is very difficult to count because the ticks have a non-lethal clinical effect. Ticks can produce pain or pruritus, which can produce final stress. Lower mobility during feeding. They don't feed so properly. And even loss of teeth, for instance, in heavy infestations with amblyoma, like you see in this image, which result, of course, in lifelong disability for milk production of that particular cow. And there are some very nice studies done under various experimental or natural condition where some authors tried to estimate how much is the weight loss on the animal per each tick which affects them. And for instance, for Rhipicephalus microplus, which is the tropical cattle tick, estimates say that for every tick which feeds on one cow, the cow loses 0.6 grams. So if a cow has 1,000 ticks attached, which is not impossible, I've seen such animals, then the weight loss can be counted in many grams or even kilograms. And a tick stays on the animal around 20 days. So if you count that the season is very long, and in a season we have many tick generations, this loss can be quite significant. And the situation is even more severe for other tick species, culminating with Amblyomma variegatum, which is a quite large tick, which can cause apparently a loss of up to 60 grams of weight loss of about 60 grams per day per every single tick attached to the animal. Ticks also affect the reproduction rates. They are responsible directly or indirectly for decreased fertility and for increased calf mortality. And this is again something which must be considered when evaluating the economic impact of the ticks. Ticks affect also other products, not only the milk and the meat production of cows, but also, or of livestock in general, but also the leather industry. For instance, ticks such as Amblyomma or Hyalomma, which have a very long, powerful rostrum, they penetrate deeply into the skin and they produce granulomatous lesions, which then significantly affect the quality of the leather which is produced from those cows. And because of all these effects, other effects such as the decrease in the manure production, the draft animal power loss, because in many countries, I'm sure also in India, in many places, cows or buffaloes, water buffaloes are used for as draft animals for doing the agricultural work. They don't have such a big productivity in this case. And last but not least, these ticks from livestock are a permanent source of infection also for humans, for other domestic species, and last but not least, also for the wildlife. And many wildlife diseases are having as an origin a disease of a domestic animal. And usually these diseases, which are not naturally occurring in wildlife and are acquired from domestic animals, they have a devastating impact on wildlife populations. And there are many examples with anthrax, for instance, decimating different species of ungulates. And if that wild species is an endangered species, the situation is even more critical, because endangered species can become critically endangered or even extinct in the case of such mass mortalities. So this is something we should really consider and think about. Then it's from the human side. Because of all these losses and all the impact of ticks, humans, they feel the need to control them, to do something about it. And they want to decrease the impact of the ticks. And they do it usually by different control measures, including treatment and prophylactic measures, which can be a chemioprophylaxis, like spraying, for instance, of the ticks, as you see here, or simply treating them after ticks appear, or preventing or treating the tick-borne diseases. Finally, there are measures of biological control, and there's a lot of research going on for biological control. And last but not least, vaccination. There are certain vaccines against ticks or against tick-borne diseases. And everything is associated with very high cost. Human power, money paid to the pharmaceutical companies, money paid by the pharmaceutical companies for research, for developing these products, and so on. So the costs are really, really big. Then, the resistance to acaricides. There should be resistance in ticks, of course, but it's not about all this. It's also the effect of applying chemoprophylactic drugs or treatment drugs to livestock. Applying acaricides, or because most of them, they also have an insecticide effect, will finally induce resistance also in other vectors feeding on the cow. For instance, it has been demonstrated that application of insecticides and acaricides on cattle in Africa, it's responsible for producing resistance in tsetse flies. So we apply the chemical products to control the ticks, but we risk to induce chemical resistance in tsetse flies. So there is a permanent need actually for finding new products, new compounds with different mechanisms of action, alternative methods such as essential oils, such as different other way how to non-conventionally control the ticks. And everything, of course, comes with spending the money. There are many side effects which very few people consider of acaricides and veterinary procedures. All the products we use, they are toxic for the livestock. There is a toxicity. Yeah? There is a risk not only for the livestock, but also for the humans which apply it. They are toxic. And of course, each product has a withdrawal time. So not only that the ticks decrease the production, but applying anti-tick products will render a withdrawal time, which legally at least should imply the condemnation of the milk or the meat within this withdrawal time. There is a stress of application. Animals are gathered in large groups to do these veterinary procedures for tick control, which is a very stressful. Stress, again, decreases immunity, decreases production, increases the chance of acquiring other diseases because of decreased immunity and because of large gatherings of animals. Contagious diseases can be easily transmitted during these procedures. Accidents can happen and so on. And it affects the quality of products because even with withdrawal time respected, still the product will not be classified as green or bio. And last but not least, an extremely important effect of all these pesticides, it's the effect on biodiversity. Avermectins, for instance, macrocyclic lactones, given to cows, given to sheep, given to any host, will be eliminated as byproducts in the feces, and they will significantly affect the biodiversity of arthropods and nematodes on the pasture, with huge impact on the development of plants. Finally, the effect on pollinators like bees or bumblebees of these insecticides, it's unbelievably high. And currently, there is a global decline of pollinators, which, because of these insecticides, which are widely used not only in livestock production, but also in agriculture. But anyway, the effect is there. And because of decrease in number of pollinators, the plant production is decreased. Finally, leading to a very, very frightening conclusion. We as humankind face a significant shortage of food in the near future, because simply with no pollinators, this will very likely affect humankind in the next 20-30 years. Yeah, and even the most optimistic people, they say this, which is quite scary. So this is everything because of our need to control the diseases. We control the diseases, but the costs are high, and the costs are not only counted as money, but also in irreversible losses on the environment, health, and biodiversity. So, sorry, this is okay. Sorry, this is one health. Okay, and then because we need to understand which diseases the ticks transmit, we have a lot of costs associated with diagnostics, both in the field and in the laboratory, and for transportation of samples. We produce pollution. We produce again the greenhouse effect because of this pollution, losses, for instance, in uh, genetic improvement when importing breeding animals. Every country wants highly productive breeds. Most of them are developed in Europe, yeah, like the Holstein or other cows, which produce up to 40, 50, even 60 liters of milk per day per cow. But if you move them to a tropical country, they will die within few weeks because they're not locally adapted. And ticks significantly contribute to these mortalities of very, very valuable breeds. So I will use the example of this this tick, which is Rhipicephalus microplus or microplus, which is the tick called the brown cattle tick or the tropical cattle tick. It is distributed worldwide. It has been introduced from Africa to all other tropical countries in South Asia, Southeast Asia, Northern Australia, and also in the Latin America, Central America, and South America, and slightly South North America as well. So it's a worldwide, we can say almost worldwide distributed tick. It's a tropical tick, so it's missing, it's absent from colder areas and from arid regions. So this tick is naturally adapted to this species of cow, which you see here, which is Bos indicus, or the zebu cattle, which is very resistant to infections, but it has a lower productivity. And it's these cows which have high productivity, they're extremely sensitive to the infections transmitted by Rhipicephalus microplus. So we have a balance. What to do to keep the local breeds of cow and allow them to live with ticks, but have low productions of milk, or bring these highly productive breeds and control them against ticks, because still the price of the control is less than the gain which we get from the more increased production. This is a very hard question to answer, and there are some calculations when to do this. So there are some studies like Johnson or Walker who they did comparisons of successful and failed attempts to eradicate livestock ticks, because cost of eradication is very high, but it has been achieved in some places, while in other places has totally failed. And this is related mainly to the social context of farming and the management of the eradication campaigns, rather than the technique of treatment or the substance as such which was used. And this is something which I will show you as some case example. And Rhipicephalus microplus is mainly important because of the disease, a disease they transmit. And this disease is called, it's a group of diseases known as pyroplasmosis. And I introduce a little bit the history of this disease because this is related to the country where I'm coming from, Romania. And here, in 1874, there was a first official interest by the government, by the Ministry of Agriculture at that time, in a disease of cattle known as blood urination, which produced many mortalities in cows in those years in Romania. And official data report only in 1879, in 1 year, 15,000 dead cows, which is a big number for a temperate country like Romania. And this is why the government appointed an investigation commission, which concluded in 1883 that it's an infectious disease, this blood urination, similar to malaria, but they were not able to identify the agent. So this is why in 1888 they appointed a second commission, which was conducted by a Romanian microbiologist known as Victor Babes, which discovered the agent and the parasite Babesia. It's named in his honor. So just to know the origin of the word Babesia, it's the guy who discovered, the scientist who discovered this parasite for the first time in 1888. In the same time, in the United States of America, there was another disease very similar to this one in Europe, which was known as the Texas fever. And 1 year later, after Babes published his results in the Academy of Sciences from Paris, in 1889, two other scientists, Smith and Kilbourne, described a similar agent of the Texas fever in the United States, and they name it Pyrosoma bigeminum, nowadays also known as Babesia bigemina. And they were the first, on the other hand, to demonstrate the tick-borne nature of this disease. And this was one of the most amazing discoveries in the history of medical sciences at that time, because it was the first time ever in the history that an arthropod was demonstrated to be able to transmit a disease. It was the first time that humans understood that there are vector-borne diseases. Even for devastating diseases such as malaria, such as the sleeping sickness, and many other vector-borne diseases, it was not known that they are transmitted by arthropods. So after the discovery of Smith and Kilbourne, then, which was a breakthrough, and nobody even imagined that ticks and other things can transmit diseases, many other diseases like malaria, dengue, sleeping sickness, and so on were demonstrated to be transmitted by different vectors, mainly insects, including filaria and so on. Anyhow, it was later on a big concern for the US Congress, and in 1906, if we extrapolate the losses in United States alone produced by the Texas fever and pyroplasms in general, today it will be $1 billion per year loss. It's huge money. And actually, this is why the American government started an eradication process of the tick of Rhipicephalus, microplus, which finally it was successful. However, it was described as a social and economic failure because the cost of eradication was really big. But on the other hand, it was a medical success. So in USA today, it's eradicated. And in 1920, the Australians started a similar campaign to eradicate Rhipicephalus microplus, and they spent huge money. And after 60 years, in 1980, they declared the campaign unsuccessful. So they stopped it, and the tick is still there. In two other places, they managed to eradicate not the tick, but the disease, the East Coast fever in South Africa, and in just the East Coast fever, they still have the tick, and the tick Amblyoma variegatum, which is also a vector of this pyroplasms, was eradicated on 4 Caribbean islands. So what about the economics of tick control? Is it feasible to control the ticks, or it's better to leave them and deal with the economic losses? What's cheaper? Because finally, if it's a livestock, we discuss about money. It's economics. We don't care if we have the tick or not, if the economic impact is lower than the costs. for eradication or control. So some people, like Walker, for instance, they tried to imagine some thresholds for the treatment against ticks. Yes, there is a kind of echo, or now it's okay. And the efficacy of cost is dependent on the intensity of infestation. The evaluation of intensity, on the other hand, is often expensive itself. Rajnish, can I ask you a question before continuing? Hello?
Yes, yes.
I have 1 hour, yeah, in total until, so I have maybe 20 more minutes, yeah?
Yeah, yeah. You have around.
Just to know, okay, okay. So this benefit of controlling the ticks is actually dependent on the geographic region, on the season, and on the type of evaluation. And it is very different. So in general, I will not go through all this example, but in general, as a conclusion, I can tell you that there is no economic benefit if we have in the area only indigenous cattle, because there is the so-called area of endemic stability. Those cows have co-evolved with the tick and with the tick-borne pathogens, so the loss of production is not so big and it doesn't merit intervention. And this is a hypothetical map, of course, of an area of endemic stability, and the single regions where the more common and more severe tick-borne diseases occur are at the margin of the vector range. Because here, animals which haven't been in contact with the pathogen transmitted by the vector are more common. So which are the principles to be followed, investigated, and evaluating when we discuss about the impact of tick-borne diseases? We have to always understand which are the natural limits of a tick population. We have to very strictly define and understand what is the timing and the seasonality of the treatment. It's useless to do the treatment in the low season of the tick life cycle. We should target the high season. Another issue to be discussed is the control of the questing ticks. It's very easy to control ticks if we do very simple management programs. If we know, for instance, that Rhipicephalus microplus feeds exclusively on cows or ruminants, we can do the pasture rotation. We can, I don't know, put horses or whatever, sheep or pigs in the pasture where 1 year before were the cows, because then the ticks will not be able to find their suitable host, and many of them will die. And we should not disregard the influence and the presence and availability of wild hosts for the tick control programs. But nowadays, most of the focus is on the use of the immune resistance, either to use naturally resistant breeds or to develop vaccines. And there is even now discussion and a challenge about using acaricides or vaccine, which is cheaper, which is more efficient. So vaccines definitely is a solution, because they can control acaricide resistant ticks. There are many populations of ticks worldwide which are resistant to all the possible acaricides, so we can do nothing. So in this situation, the vaccine is a solution, but still the vaccine faces many challenges. You have seen now, it's the perfect example during the pandemics, we must develop a vaccine. Yeah? Pfizer announced yesterday or 2 days ago the first results, but still it's a long way until we have the vaccine. So there are many challenges, and there are several teams working for tick vaccines, including one very promising vaccine which is commercially available in certain places of the world, produced by the team, coordinated by a good friend of mine, Jose de la Fuente, from Spain. And there are these tick vaccines. So on the other hand, after discussing everything, slowly we should conclude a little bit. And the current concept for the control of ticks and tick-borne diseases uses the One Health principle, the so-called integrated control. So we should do an integrated control rather than control of individual diseases, which imply also management measures to prevention, diagnosis, therapy, potential synergies to be exploited, like the control together of tsetse and ticks. In the same time, you control trypanosomiasis and tick-borne diseases. And tick control in livestock, on the other hand, as you have seen during my presentation, can be economically feasible or not. Because the problem is so complex and it depends a lot on local eco-epidemiological factors. And the evaluation should be probably tailored individually in each geographic area and in each even community and social context, considering all the factors we have already discussed. With this, I want to finish my presentation and to thank the organizers for inviting me. I really hope to be able to speak to you live, face to face, not through the webcam and using the microphone. And I think we have some minutes for questions. If there are questions from the auditory, I will just stop sharing my screen so you can see me better. Okay, and yes.
Hi, participants. So thank you very much, Dr. Andrei. And now it's open for questions. I think we go to first question.
Yes, they're on the chat. So let me. Yeah, what factors? It's from Simran Depp. Sorry if I pronounced it in a wrong way, but I hope it's okay. What factors attract ticks to cattle pheromones? Can we attack that aspect for control and eradication? Yes, so ticks, they are using different strategies to find their hosts, including chemical attractants like the CO2 or even the pheromones, as you mentioned. And this provides two different tick species, different host specificity levels. And the ticks which are attaching only to cattle, definitely they are attracted also by cattle pheromones. So they have sensorial organs. They have these are the factors that attract them. They have the sensorial organs which feel this, and actually they are not called pheromones, but they are called allomones. Pheromones are intraspecific chemical communicators. Allomones are those which are able to produce communication between two species, and they have sensorial organs such as the haller organs on the legs, on the front legs. And if we can use that aspect for control eradication, of course, theoretically, yes. Practically, tick control is a little bit complicated because this has been used, for instance, in trapping flying insects or flying vectors like mosquitoes, like black flies, like stable flies, like horn flies, tsetse flies, and tabanids, and so on. Because they are flying and they detect these traps which use the pheromones. But ticks, they do not have such a big mobility. They don't move only a few meters around the place where they are in the environment. They don't move so for big distances. So it's very difficult to use this and trap them. Okay. Any medicinal plant-based approach to prevent tick infestation? Yes. So there are hundreds of study for this issue. There are many publications. Most of them are in vitro studies about the efficacy of different oils and different extracts and so on. The main problem is that the efficacy in vivo in field conditions, it's not anymore sufficient. In the lab, they work perfectly, and but in the real life conditions, they do not work enough. Yeah, so this is the problem nowadays. I think without changing something significantly, I'm editor in many journals and reviewer in many journals, and we receive tens of papers on the efficacy of studies of plant extracts on ticks, on mites, on different things, and all of them are the same. Yeah? So I tend more and more to reject them, because we have enough evidence that some of them work in vitro, but now we need a different paradigm. We cannot continue with these studies forever as soon as we are totally aware that they cannot be applied in real life conditions, because even those are expensive. Yeah, to produce an extract from a plant, it's not so cheap. It's not just a tea. You just pick some plants, boil them in the water, and spray the cows. These are alcoholic extracts which require essential oils, which require a quite complex technology to produce. Yeah? And finally, they are not necessarily cheaper, and maybe not even safer. Nobody actually evaluated their environmental safety. Just because they're extracted from plants, we automatically assume they are safe for the environment. But I don't think it's just as simple as such. I wanted to know about its cost versus benefit for India. I don't know. Yeah, this is something. I'm not a specialist in economics. All these studies which I shown you were done by economists in general. What I can tell you, even for India, for everything, definitely the most successful approaches were always when local breeds of cows were used with genetic input from highly productive breeds. So they are hybrids, but with a more strong component of the local breed, which has a certain immunity, natural immunity to ticks and local tick-borne diseases. Yeah. So this is the situation. I think and India, even as such, is such a big country and so diverse culturally and environmentally, that I don't think one single solution can be implemented for all the country. I think it's locally based. Does every tick infestation cause disease or infection? Definitely no. Many tick species are not transmitting serious diseases, or even if they transmit a pathogen, the infection level is low. It's dependent on many factors. First, the existence of the pathogen, which is usually related to a reservoir host. It's related to the intensity of tick infestation. It's related to the local resistance of the animals and so on. So luckily, in most of the situations, ticks do not cause tick-borne diseases. This situation occurs when a disturbance comes. I don't know, a new host is introduced, a new pathogen is introduced, the cow has a decreased immunity, or the animal has a decreased immunity because of drought or because of shortage of food and so on. So such cataclysmic events and epidemic events produced by tick-borne diseases always have an underlying favoring factor. About the vaccine, can you tell us about Dr. Jose's vaccine? Yes, there are. I don't know, to be honest, if it's registered in India, but I can check. This vaccine, Rhipicephalus microplus vaccine, if it's Available in India, I don't know. I don't think it is. Yeah, I think it's available in Brazil only, if I know. So it's not commercially available, only in South America. And I think only one vaccine in Australia for something, and South Africa. But in India, I'm not sure. Anyway, it's quite new, so I don't know what's the situation there. But definitely you have Rhipicephalus microplus.
Okay. Have you got any other question, Andy?
No?
Okay. So if there are no more questions, please join me in thanking Dr. Andrei for such a wonderful talk. Thank you very much, Dr. Andrei.
No,
And
thank you for the invitation. It was a really pleasure for me. And I'm really looking forward to, I visited almost all the world, but I never been to India. So I'm planning to go there in
Corona has
2023.
changed everything. Okay.
So maybe we meet there, because we have a big conference on parasitology
Yep.
in WAVP, yeah?
Yeah, I think it's in South India. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely try to see you over there too. So once again, I would like.
No, I'm just
Okay. So
saying
once
hello
again,
to everybody, yeah?
so once again, I would like to thank all the organizing team. First of all, Dr. Ghuman, who is our dean as well as patron of these webinars, and then Dr. R.S. Olak, who is director of School of Public Health, and all the other faculty members who always help me, as well as IDP team, Poonam, Tejeshwar, and others. And we would also like to thank Dr. Inderjeet Singh, who is our Vice Chancellor of this university, for supporting us constantly for organizing such webinars. And at the end, I would like to thank all the participants who showed up and actively engaged in the QA session at the end. And thanks to all of you. And I encourage you to join the other webinars which we are organizing. There is one we will be conducting tomorrow. It is on foodborne parasites. So you are invited to join those two. And once again, thank you very much, Dr. Andre, for giving such a wonderful talk, and hope to collaborate and further continuing such webinars in future. Thank you very much once again. Thanks.
Thank you everybody. Bye.
Bye, sir. Bye. Bye.
Bye,
Bye, sir. Bye.